competitive in terms of productivity.
Yes.
This is why they are able to reduce prices. Okay, so
Mhm.
if the government doesn't support these industries, there is no amount of capital, investment funds you will pour into this industry that will be able to allow this industry in that country to be competitive. Like what doctor was saying just now, many Africans in the diaspora have been
Mhm.
looking for ways to actually accumulate capital and be able to channel this capital into
Mhm.
various industries. In
Mhm.
my view, I think what we call Africa or what we call the African economy, we need to be more specific. We need to break things down to if we are going to medical equipment production, if we are going to commodity processing, if we are going to retail management operations, or we are actually going into processing of food use and all that kind of stuff. Uh, we need to have what we call special funds that are targeted into the production of the equipment, into research, into operations, to these kind of investment at the same time. Do not just consider these individuals. They only have to have what we call the PPP, public-private
Mhm.
partnership with the authorities as well. And these authorities, they play, even if they are not bringing in the funds and the diaspora are going to bring in the funds, they actually need them to be able to implement policies that can actually help these local industries to be able to get off the ground. It may not be in rebates in terms of what they export and then they get some money back, but it will actually be in terms of limits to importation of goods, just as we experienced China, they did. They imposed tariff on so many other items. It can only be produced in their own country. But at the same time, they didn't just do it just for doing its sake because they have the power. But at the same time, they were forcefully encouraging their citizens and graduates and what you call the professionals into this industry and developing
Mhm.
in this industry until they are able to compete on the international stage. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your insights on this. This brings me now again to a follow-up question, and I would love to hear the answer of both of you doctors. Um, do you believe that distance virtual assistance in the payments of the funding can work? In that, I mean that when payments are going to be made, it's not directly to the person who is developing it, but more to what he needs directly. So it's not him paying, but actually the organization that is funding it. Do you think that can work? That could be a solution?
Can you throw a little light again on it? Like virtual.
Okay.
The
Just then
persons
I hear a very big problem that makes it difficult, right? Which is the funding that is not being used correctly. Now, I've seen organizations now going in, for example, virtual and distance assistance in farming. Basically, they're looking at your farm, they're funding your farm, they're helping you, they're educating you everything from a distance, and they are paying directly in what you need. Let's say you need fertilizers, they are paying for the fertilizer.
to be sent to
They
you
are even paying your workers. They are managing the whole thing actually from a distance. Do you think this can work for Africa?
for some industries, I would say yes. But at
Okay.
the end of the day, I mean, for some industries, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, we have to look at it and map it and then put the control measures in place. Because at the end of the day, who is going to harvest the product, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can harvest it and sell it to someone else, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we have to put control measures in place.
Okay. So you think that definitely the government should be
It could be private, another private company, because I mean, excuse my language here. If we look at performance-based and non-performance-based, private sector companies, in terms, they look at things in a performance-based arena, right? So
Yeah.
I'm thinking it could be another private company charged to do that, and for them to be charged, the right documentation needs to be done. They need to sign an agreement and say that if this thing comes out of that, this is part of, and we are going to give you this. If this happens, that there should be negotiations and agreements to make sure that.
Yes, of course. For example, if you're a farmer with your own land, that you take the land. If he's not,
you have your own land, we are going to give you everything you need. Whatever is going to come out, you'll be owning maybe, let's say 40%. The 60% is going to share with whoever is going to monitor you, and then the actual person supplying with the equipment. There should be some kind of negotiation. So the people who are on the ground, which is a private company, which could be even an African company, will ensure that that happens, because at the end of the day, they're also going to earn something from that. So they will make
are
sure
these
that.
companies already there?
So what now?
Are these kind of companies already there?
Oh, even if they are not there, it can be formulated. In that case, they know there's something in for them. So it could be people in Africa who do that. There could be intermediary private companies, because they know that equipment will come to them. They will give it to the farmer. At the end of the day, what they produce from the farm comes in. They have a percentage of it, and then they have to give weekly or monthly reports to the company, and to the company externally, or to the diasporans externally. And the diasporans at one point in time, they also have to be able to go there. They can even have, they have to go there, and they have to find a means of also making sure that whatever report they receive is correct. They don't have to wait till 1 month, 10 months, or whatever. Maybe weekly, they have to find a way, send someone independently to go and see. Instead of bringing 1,000 people, one person can go and see and ensure that the report matches what is on the ground. And maybe when it comes to harvest, they can have one person from the diaspora go and make sure that the right harvest is done. Or the company, which that is being exported to, will be down there to ensure that they are receiving the quality and the quantity that they want. It can be done.
Okay, that sounds very positive, and glad to hear that. Now, another question that I had is, there are many inventors and innovators back here in Africa and outside. If the university system, wait 1 second. If the university, if the university system, there is, has a lack of investment or funding, aid their R&D work output, what are your thoughts on how they can be enabled to deliver to society their credible works or products?
IP is a very big space. It's a very tricky space.
Okay.
IP is for economic reasons, right?
Yeah.
It's just for economic reasons, or economic purpose. So at the end of the day, you're going to sink money into it, get the patent, and then have a royalty for about 20 years, right? Time is of importance. There's something called a strong patent and a weak patent, right? You can file a patent and not knowing it was a weak patent. You can file a patent and not knowing that it was a wrong time. So patent has economics built into it, and you need a patent strategist. I've been talking to a number of universities. Yeah, you need a patent strategist, because you're going to put money into it, and then you need the timing right. There's something called provisional patent that will give you room for 12 months, right? After the 12 months, if you don't apply for the actual patent, you lose the patent. It becomes public knowledge for anybody to tap into it. And also, when you start the patent process, and then you didn't get funding to continue to write it really well and get people to plan very well, time is taken, right, to earn the money. So it can be done. And I've been talking to a number of investors in Ghana to help them to really understand the process and how they can make money. It's not for saying that I have 20 patents, I have 50%, and then you walk around with it. You can do that, filing provisional, your name will be published. But to make money out of that is the difference. And also, to sound a note here, there are 4 different types of patents. We have the utility patent, which has something to do with functionality. We have the design patent, which has something to do with appearance of a functional object. Let's say I have an engine, it works, it functions. I have a patent on that. The way the engine looks, right? I can have a patent just on the look because it's a functional object. And then we have the utility model patent. That is a small patent, very common in China, and has something to do with manufacturing. The way the handle feels, the way the handle looks, let's a lot of things about it. And it's, I think Germany, most manufacturing-based countries have that. And also we have the plant patent, like a special plant patent. So what we are talking about here is the utility patent, which is very important, and there may be design patents. Those are the top two in the patent realms, which I'm thinking we need to really understand that. It could be a topic that maybe one day I may have to present and then show the intricacies, because I'm sharing with some universities in Ghana the intricacies. And then now they say, wow, we never knew this, we never knew that, right? First, it should be driven by the economic means, and then you should have a purpose for it, and you should have a market for it. If there's no market, you have to develop the market, and we have the push and the pull. And what value is the patent bringing out? The value is very important. And currently, though we have the competitive way of pricing, we have the value way of pricing too. Look at that, at an iPhone. iPhone, you can listen to radio, you can use an app to do so many things, you can attach equipment to it, you can check your, you can do about over 50 things. Imagine those individual things in there. If each one of them was manufactured separate, or you're supposed to get them separately, look at the cost versus the cost of an iPhone. So we have to look at the value, and the value should be built back into the innovation system to be able to make this holistic way of getting our money back. At the end of the day, nothing is for free. If you are doing anything, and if you want Africa to grow, we have to think about, how do I pay back? Government will set up and do things the way it's supposed to be done. And then another thing I also read about Africa is the private sector. Because it's performance driven, we have to empower more private sector to be able to support Africa grow.
So basically what I'm hearing a little bit of you is, anybody who has created this patent or is the owner of such patent, at the same time must be an entrepreneur. Because it's of no use if you're, for example, a university grad and you have all this on your name and it's all published, but you don't monetize.
It doesn't have any money to it. You will lose it because you have maintenance fee. Even if you get a patent, there's maintenance fee. You don't need to be an entrepreneur, but you have to have a group, right? You have to work with a group. You can have an investor, you can have an entrepreneur, and you become the patent person with the idea. So you have to be a group working together with an economist to bring this into market. You shouldn't be too much individualistic. You might not be able to win very well unless you have all the three together.
So your advice for people who are creating patents is work in a group that can help you to monetize it.
Monetize it. So, but look at the economics first to be able to develop the patent. If you look at the big universities in the USA, like MIT, you see three students. Look, you see three students came together, they did this and did that, right? It's because they all have different strengths and they have to complement one another. But behind that is the right documentation that at the end of the day, when this go forward, this is your percentage, that's my percentage. The agreement need to be there, or else it will fall apart. So it should be done in a group way. And we all know that 10 hairs are better than one, or 2 hairs are better than one, right? It might all not reside with you. Other people have to come in, and you have to be able to write the document very well to invite more people in.
Now, since there are many listeners, I know for sure, I would like to hear your advice on, and maybe you can write it for us in the chat. If somebody has a patent or is producing a patent, is there a guideline for them in how to monetize this? For example, to have how to build this group, what should be in the group? Is there something like that? Is there a website? Is there an organization?
You can Google and you can find a lot of information. But you should know that when you Google anything, there's also chaff with it, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm asking.
I've been working in this space. I've been working in this space for a long time. So
Okay.
over 20 years. I started my first patent some years back. And you can even Google my name and see how I shared my vision, how I started, how things came together. I'm willing to write something. People can put their requests together. I'm in contact with George Ebube, right? So what I'll do is whatever questions that come out, I can put the solution and everything together and share with us, people who came to this conference. So I'm available to talk
Excellent.
with
So maybe you
anybody.
could leave us your details, your contact details in the chat so
Yes.
that people can reach out, because I always
Or just
say,
Google my name. If you Google my name, you'll find me easily.
okay,
My contacts
excellent.
are online. Just Google my name.
Okay, so all of you there who are listening, please do Google his name and reach out and, make sure that you can monetize your patents, because otherwise it's of no use, all that hard work, and not making a cent on it. It's such a waste and sad. So my next question, sorry, this is for, yeah, sorry, I really boomed you with a lot of questions. I'm going back to Dr. Sorry, because your name, I keep forgetting.
Is it Opposite?
Opposite, Dr. Opposite? Opposite? Doc,
Yes, well
Dr.
pronounced. Opposite.
Oko?
Opposite. No, it's not becoming interesting any longer. Opposite. Opposite.
Opposite. Okay. Sorry
Or
for
just
that.
call me
Really forgive.
Jeffrey, okay?
Okay, thank you.
It's okay.
Yes, I had some questions for you as well. It was very
Okay.
interesting, all these insights that we're getting here tonight. I have this. Wait, oh, this. Are the parent laws in Africa strong enough to ensure African inventors are protected and their works not stolen abroad?
Could
And
you
how
come
can
again
it
with the
change
question?
if it's not? Sorry?
Come again with the question, please. Did you say parenting?
Are the parent laws, the laws in Africa, strong enough to ensure African inventors are protected and their works not stolen abroad?
Oh, thank you very much.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, I got the question. Thank you very much. Looking at things Africa, laws generally are quite porous in Africa. Enforcement and implementation are always very not quite efficient. This is why we've not been able to actually develop very well, because of the porousness of our laws. And talking about patents, usually for Africa would depend more on the African institutions. Would depend more on the African institution being able to come up with various patents. Like I said, Africa has actually gone back in terms of technological advancement. Unlike before, the government was actually aware that the universities were actually needed for technological advancements. Okay. So therefore, as individuals, for individuals to be able to come up with their own patents and various research, financing of research, most Africans generally cannot afford this kind of research. The cost of actually registering a patent in itself is expensive. And if you actually just want to make your patents just for the local or just for your country, how well can your country, an African country, protect its citizens from patents that has been actually initiated? So our institutions are not quite strong to actually even enforce the protection of African or patents made by Africans. So therefore, most African inventors who are able to actually fund themselves or through direct backing from one or two influential individuals, they have always had to go make a filing, at the US, mostly in US. They actually have to still go make another international filing to actually protect their patents. So therefore, talking about actually developing our own, we were told, you asked how and in my view, I believe doing business in Africa, it's still being done in a very primitive approach, in a family kind approach to businesses. We need to do business on an economic scale, on a bigger scale. We need to have corporations that are employing people in the thousands. And we equally need to be able to develop this same company and then be able to expand it to various regions, and then management comes in. So I was reading this empirical analysis about African companies generally. If we look, most of the multinational corporations in Africa employing big labor, you find that most of them started with some Western management style in Africa. Okay, if you take Jumia, for example, is Nigeria's biggest e-commerce company, equally Africa. But looking deep down at the founders, you still find out, okay, it actually
This meeting is being recorded.
Research or patent is actually solving a problem. This is where patent comes up. Okay, isn't it? This is where patent comes up. Then you equally have to look at the economic benefits to these patents. Even if it's in pharmaceutical, they still have to consider profitability. And coming up with a solution.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, we're not even talking about these researchers. They need people who actually fund them and finance them. And this has been inculcated into their system, like in the US, to some extent, the US government actually does provide various tax cuts and benefits to companies, private sector companies who actually encourage research through universities, okay, various universities. This is why these universities have huge funding, even more than some governments in Africa. Okay, if you go to the likes of corporations in Japan, like what the doctor was explaining in terms of utility patents, whereby sometimes it's just the outward appearance that needs to be modified or redesigned, and then a patent is filed for this kind of copyrights, okay, and this kind of patent. This is very rampant, like you said, in manufacturing-based countries. And like Japan, if you look at how Japan runs its research, it's usually the private corporations, they work with directly with universities, okay? Working directly with universities, they actually prefer problems to them that they need solutions on, okay? So the universities actually now provides funding to students to be able to provide such solutions, okay? So now these solutions are actually right away implemented into the real economy or into real manufacturing. And directly, everybody gains. So it's not like the American system where it's a winner take all. Even in the American system, if you look deep down, it's not a winner take all whereby the researcher takes all the benefit. No, he has private corporations backing him for half a decade, for years, whereby they actually legally do negotiate in terms of ownership and that kind of thing. Okay, like with pharmaceuticals. Okay, so Africa needs to actually approach research for us to be able to develop homegrown technologies where we can have African corporations actually work with private universities in various fields. If you take Nigeria, for example, it being the oil sectors, or we're talking about the energy situation in Nigeria or in Africa, or we're talking about the refining of chemical products or various commodities we have in Africa. I mean, these technologies are not so difficult. Like I said earlier on, the biggest drawback is we actually do not even have the production of simple basic things that steel materials, iron. Okay, so actually still in this age has become something like wood, whereby you actually need it in everything. Okay, so private corporations, if Diaspora are actually thinking about setting up various enterprises in Africa, we should actually stop trying to approach businesses and enterprises as a family business. We should actually be able to outsource various part of actually running a company to as much as managing the fund, to as much as employment and outsourcing all these things to different companies. All these are still source of employment to Africans. Okay? You're going into agriculture. You are here in the diaspora. You want to be the one who employs the manager. You want to be the one who is talking to define what you call it. You're the one talking to your accounts manager. At the same time, you want to be the one who supervises daily output and everything. No, we need to have institutionalized corporations where things are done in an economic scale. Therefore, capital is harnessed from these big corporations. Then research can actually come from home, from within Africa, and work with our institutions and be able to provide that capital to talented students who can actually be able to develop whatever solutions to our product. Okay, now we have Africans who can actually control robots in actually carrying out surgeries now.
Okay.
But as Africans, we have not been able to develop basic technology mechanization that can. In Nigeria, we have this traditional food. We've not been able to develop something as simple as this mechanized equipment that can actually help us turn our what you call it, cassava, or we call it eba, to turn it. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah.
I hear you, and that's where my next question is coming. 1 second, because now it comes. How can the diaspora in the tech industry collaborate to accelerate tech growth back home as their contribution to the Africa's awakening? And in this, I mean, for example, if the diaspora is living, let's say, in China, I just heard Dr. Alexander talking about you must work in groups, right? To be able to get anywhere. Now, if somebody who's in the diaspora is creating this group, I was thinking especially for the protection of the copyright, since, as I just heard, the laws are not yet adequate enough to protect. How about diverting and let the diaspora protect it in the diaspora?
Yes.
In the group. If it's protected within the group, isn't it automatically protected everywhere?
Yes. Patents have jurisdiction You can file a patent and say, I want this area, that area, whatever, but you have to pay for them, right?
Yes.
So that can be done, but there's money involved, right? And then the money involved that you need to recoup means that what? I'm going to file in that area. Is the money I'm going to recoup from that area going to be enough for the payback? So those are things. So it depends on that.
If it's a group, it can be done, right? Because if you're working in a group, if I'm in, let's say, Kenya, the other one is in Nigeria, each one pays for his own. I think that's what I think, but I'm asking you, is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. You can put as many people as possible on a patent, right? And they can all pay, and they own the patent. But at the end of the day, patent is for economic reasons. Before you file a patent, where you are filing the patent, is it going to make the money to pay for the patent? Because you can acquire the patent, you have to maintain the patent. That means maintaining means that every year or every sometime you have to pay money to maintain it, or else the patent, you lose it. So apart from getting the patent itself, hiring a lawyer or filing it yourself to get the patent in your hand, the maintenance is another cost for the 20 years. So all those costs, when you add it together, I'll share with us the various costs, right, of having a patent to maintain it. It could be in the.
How much is it? How much is the cost?
It could be 30,000 or more to acquire and to maintain. So if that thing is not
$30,000 or
yes,
$30,000. Okay.
Dollars. But that's even in the minimum, because in case someone infringes you have to go to the court to defend your stand. So it's not as easy as we think. I can send you more information. I mean, if there's a common platform, I'll share more information for people to understand how to acquire a patent and to be able to maintain the patent itself. Because
that is in Africa, right? Maybe we should make a WeChat account for you so that everybody can tap in, or a YouTube account.
Yes, and I can explain things to us really, really well. Share more information for people to read and understand, and you realize that it's not a cookie cutter. There are intricacies. Someone can even come after your patent and try to invalidate your patent. You have to get the money to defend yourself in the court that your patent is original, because there's a small overlap. It's not as easy as we think.
Isn't it even worth to go and make a patent in the end? Isn't it better to just start production like the Chinese do?
And also you can have a patent and not produce. All that you're going to do, I'm having the patent, and it's going to allow me to import into the country. I'm having a patent, and that patent is going to help me to license it to other people to produce, to pay me for my patent. You know what I'm saying? So it's not always to produce. There are so many aspects that you can earn from a patent. But to maintain a patent, you have to get money to also defend the patent.
Wow.
Okay, I'm sorry to jump in here, Ria. I'm sorry to jump in here, but we have some questions in the audience, and we also have Pepe, our other moderator, who
excellent. Pepe, can you take over
we need
now?
to jump in here, and one of our guests is also in the house. So Miss Ria, if maybe you can take, we have two hands raised up, incling my own. Mr. Ken, Mr. Ken has been dying to ask. Mr. Ken has been dying to ask a question. I also have a question, and then maybe we can bring Miss Pepe to get the chance to also moderate, if you don't mind.
And I think two of the participants are here. I think Dr. Huntington is here, and I think Eric Masaba, if I may say, so that we don't forget about them.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And Mr. Ken, maybe you can ask your question. Maybe I will ask my question as well, and then we can have Pepe, our other moderator, bring the other guest. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. My question goes either Dr. Alex, Mr. Professor Hamilton, or Mr. Eric Masaba. Any of them can ask. I don't know. I think for me, I like politics. I go the political side of it. I don't know. I think for me, it's not even investment. That's the problem in Africa, or trust. The first thing I think about our dear speakers, do you think at any point dumping is part of the main problem we have here in Africa? Because you see, like Africans are content. We are like content. Oh, iPhone 14 is coming next year. Oh, Maserati latest model is coming next year, and nobody is doing anything. Nobody is producing. Do you think to a certain extent, dumping, if our government systems can try to reduce dumping, or I don't know, do you think it can go a long way to let us think and produce and get to work?
Ria, can you say it? Because his line was breaking up.
Sorry.
Ken's line was breaking up. I didn't hear almost everything Ken
What
said.
you said?
Okay, let me take it again.
Ken, okay, I will listen so that maybe I can. Okay, yes, say it again, Ken.
Can you hear me now? Everybody, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
I can
yes.
hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
This is my problem, because I always, anything, even eating, I go to the political aspect of it, because without politics, there's nothing that exists. I'm asking this question. Now, I think there's a lot of dumping going on in Africa, which is like slowing the way we think, the way we do things and all that. So I'm asking you, because in most cases, I've seen Africans being content, like naming, oh, iPhone 14 is coming. This time around it's going to be very good. Maserati, the latest. Africans are very good in naming the new technologies that are coming and things, but no one is thinking of maybe taking the bold step or doing anything. Do you think at any point, if our government or our authorities, our authorities try to maybe reduce level of
Wi-Fi is based. Me, I can ask Mike this moment. Alexander, can you hear me?
Wait, I see that you put on how you call it subtitles. Maybe you can read the subtitles. Can you see the subtitles?
Okay.
You're not getting me.
Yeah, you were broken up, Mr. Ken.
Somebody
actually, we heard Mr. Ken very well. Actually,
okay.
Miss Waters was actually, your line was breaking up.
Yeah, I think I got kicked out, so I turned off my VPN, and then I'm using my data now instead of my house Wi-Fi, and I hope that makes a difference. Okay. So did Mr. Ken ask his question?
My question was about dumping. Do you people think at any point one of our main problems could be this dumping?
Yes.
In Africa?
Dumping? Are you saying dumping?
Is an opportunity to me.
Okay.
It has a good side and has a bad part, right? The dumping means that the technology is available to you to learn from and to make modifications or come up with new ideas to be able to make your own. That's what I'll say about the positive side. And other places, whatever is coming from elsewhere, they put a premium on it so the way that people don't buy it and dilute whatever is there. There's always a need. But if we, Africans, we don't fill up the need, we don't develop something to fill it up, something will have to come from somewhere, because most of us are traveling outside. We've seen it and we want to enjoy that back home. So we'll bring it back home. Until something is made in Africa of equal value or even slightly lower value, which is almost getting closer to that, or something we can work with, the dumping will keep on coming. And it depends on what policies are there to make sure that the dumping doesn't affect the local industries that exist, but rather look at the positive part and take it to renovate the system and to be able to make difference with it.
Because I don't know, I'm asking this because, Doctor, I think sometimes our leaders do it deliberately. Like in Africa, no, I must be very frank. In Africa, it's only in Africa you get things like, you still get archiving systems. You get to the ministry, the file papers like this, and when you go to ask, you want to search your document, they tell you to pay a searching fee. I think maybe because of fraud and maybe cheating.
It should. That could be one. It should be digitized, right? Digitization will save time.
Yes.
Digitization.
So why are they deliberately not doing it?
I don't know that part, but we all maybe some of the things we are talking about. If the private company starts looking at that as a problem, look, Africa is a land of riches. You know that what you've just said is a problem, and you've identified. So there's a need. Why don't you set up a company which will do that digitization, work with the government, and get all those things? Because if you go to even the hospital, you see the papers a lot before they can file your file. But if it's digitization, that's going to help industrialization. Industrialization cannot occur without digitization. So you've identified a problem that I'm thinking that you can start up something and we will help you to do it. Because digitization is a big problem.
Done.
Yes. So
No,
digitization is a big problem of Africa.
In my country, we sing it every time. Taxation, and the government keeps telling us, no, it's good to be collecting the money like that.
But we are
So
doing less.
We are wondering what is the
doing
problem?
less manufacturing. If we're doing less manufacturing, you should know that economics will not balance very well. Also, another thing is importation. You know, you can make money quickly from importation, right? So when I import and I sell, it's a buying and selling. But to do a manufacturing, which is original, you have to put money into it. Maybe the terms of office for each government being 4 years is so short that they might not be able to do well with that. Another thing could be the national agenda. Does the country have an agenda? What is the focus? What do they call importance? That if this government comes, another government comes, are they going to follow the same thing? No. What I've come to see is this government comes, whatever they are working on, when the next one comes, they put it somewhere and then start something different. There should need to be continuity. But what is driving that? What is driving that? It could be that if I continue with yours, you took the money, you did whatever with it, the money is done. When I come, I don't have any money to operate, so I have to start up a new project, right? Which will give me fresh money to operate. So maybe the terms in office need to be looked at. Because before, to me, when I go to Ghana, what I hear is more politics, right? But what are we doing about manufacturing? Because that's the core of everything. We manufacture, we sell, we get more money, that will help. And what is the system in place? We have to put a system in place. But who is going to put that system in place that we all in Africa or we all in the country will follow? So there needs to be a national agenda or an African agenda. After have started, how can we support after that distant branches into the various countries with different modifications because the cultures are different? It's a big problem, but the problem means that there's a need that we have to build on to make a difference with that. So identification of the problem, I'm happy we just pointed out one, and we have to build on that to make a difference.
Okay, thank you so much. So I do have a question, but I'm going to wait until the end so we can give our other guests the chance. Pepe, you can, I guess, jump in here as our second moderator for the evening and give the other two guests that have come in the opportunity to speak. And we do have a question from BridgeAfrique, but please let's have our new guest and our new moderator come in and we'll ask those questions later. Pepe?
Good evening, Ms. Emilia. I'm so sorry for coming in late. I had something I was doing, and I'm sorry I couldn't even put my video on. It's actually very inconvenient now, but I hope to do that very soon. Yeah, I just came into the meeting, so I might not know the particular speaker yet to be addressed. Please, may you remind me?
Okay, actually, I was already in the questions section. And the other thing is that I hear now some of the speakers that were not there before, that they have finally arrived. If you could just please, I don't know who are the speakers who now have arrived. Can you please identify yourself?
Yeah, we have Mr. Eric Masaba in the house. He's the inventor of the UK.
Oh, okay. I can see he actually raised his hand. Okay, I'm going to give the floor to you, Mr. Eric, but before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Eza Chukwulopepeshwa Bianujungwa. Everybody calls me Pepe. Yeah, I'm from Nigeria, and I'm also glad to be one of your moderators today. So over to you, Mr. Eric Masaba. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you have for us today?
Okay, hello everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'll give you a quick background. What you've been discussing is actually very relevant to myself. I'm a UK-based inventor. I'm obviously of an African origin. My parents moved here from Uganda in the 70s, done all my education in the UK, and I've been very fortunate to have worked in a variety of sectors, mostly aeronautics, electricity research, and then investment banking and hedge funds. And then I was able to set up my own company. I was able to find collaborators from my university friends and colleagues from the investment bank. And what we did was we actually created a huge amount of property for what people know as Uber. Now, long before Uber existed, about 6 years before they officially claimed they'd invented whatever, I filed a patent at the same time as Facebook got started on the biggest claim of the patent is geolocation of social network members. This actually underpins a lot of things that the United States military does globally when it blows up people in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, wherever. The fact is, in order to locate somebody who doesn't want to be located, you can track their friends or close relatives who may still have a locator beacon, also known as a phone, and you can infer where they're going to be. Now, we use that idea to basically say, what if we tracked all the vehicle resources in the city and we're able to basically direct them to people who needed them in real time, and those people could see when those resources were coming to them, how many people were in there, and basically everything you know is Uber and Uber Pool and all those things. Now, the whole point is, with all the goodwill and with all the laws in the world, if you have something of significant economic value, your only option is to get a powerful political backer, because there's no law anywhere. It's not about Africa. There's plenty of things which are just ignored in Europe, in the United States. I've spent £400,000 to date on a patent over 15 years. I've seen Google and Facebook and Uber file copies or make similar claims in their patents, which they've filed anywhere up to 10 years after mine, and they've had theirs awarded. Now, the key thing here, as everybody knows, my identity was deleted from UK records from 2007 right up until about 2018. So I didn't actually exist. That's the sort of power people who want to take intellectual property can go to. The biggest thing we need as an African diaspora is to undo this idea that all Black people are stupid brutes, because that is highly believed in the West. So when somebody like me comes along and says, well, actually, I'm the guy who invented Uber and here's my patent filing, it was unbelievable. People just refused to believe it. It didn't matter if I showed them patent filing. It didn't matter if I showed them videos of myself with people who then went into UK cabinet. Nobody wanted to believe it. And I think the biggest thing we need to change is the perception that Blacks can only be sports people or musicians and whatever else. Now, as we all know, there's plenty of Black inventors, but what we are suffering from is a credibility factor, which makes getting that investment and getting this over the line harder. I've been very, very fortunate to have had, believe it or not, the backing of the late Queen Elizabeth II, may she rest in peace, and her son, Prince Charles, now King Charles. They somehow had found out about me, and so I got some support, which probably prevented me being killed, or worse, being tortured and then killed. That is just how patents go. This has happened throughout the history of all technology. As to address the other point about dumping, Russia is facing massive sanctions, has been since 2014. Back in 2018, President Putin actually said, bring the sanctions on. They help us by denying us access to your stuff. We develop our own, or we make our stuff better, which has actually happened. Africa could take a real leaf out of the book. Now, obviously, somebody gives you something free, or take it. That's what the Chinese have done, and they've moved their economy forward from what was effectively medieval standards of living for 80% of their population 40 years ago, to now arguably the largest economy in the world by quite a margin. I mean, remember, we can argue that America's still the biggest, but that's if you ignore their debts and you value derivatives and wherever else. But in terms of pure manufacturing, Russia and China are really going there. Africa has the ability to start developing its own infrastructure. The most important aspect of that is investment in people. What we're doing here right now by supporting one another and saying, hey, I can see that other Africans can invent, have invented, will invent. That's really important. That is developing our natural resource, our most important natural resource. So fundamentally, I think that that dumping problem, sure, use the stuff, but there are lots of other technologies which in the West have been suppressed because they're powerful people who suppress them. For example, the Czech Republic, which was basically backward compared to Germany or the UK in Europe, leapfrogged ahead because the unions within the telecom companies in Germany and the UK would prevent fiber being put in. But Czech Republic didn't have any real infrastructure, not the amount of copper wires. So when they put in their phone networks, it was by German companies who wanted to try the latest stuff. So they went full fiber straight away. Africa has that potential. For example, there's different types of computing, trinary or higher order logics, which in the West and in Taiwan and in all the places where semiconductors are big, people will say, nope, we're never going to change from binary because we've got tooling set up. If you have no tooling, you have no fixed costs. These leapfrogs have happened consistently in technology. Germany leapfrogged Britain with the Navy because Britain had coal-powered ships. Germany went straight to oil power, or Japan went to naval aviation because they couldn't afford to build that many battleships, for example. These things happen all the time. And if you look at Apple with the iPhone in 2007, Apple was nowhere in 2005, nowhere. It was Nokia, it was Palm, it was Sony Ericsson. And look how quickly they were left behind and wiped out. That's the speed of innovation. Ironically, the final point, when there were patents on Kodak photography or whatever else, people just fled to the American Far West, where the East Coast lawyers couldn't catch up with them to enforce the patents. And I'm not saying ignore patents, but in reality, a lot of the biggest companies just ignore patents. They will literally just take your stuff and then say, so sue us. No, you can't. We can tie you up in court forever. The only option you've got is to find somebody who's going to do a deal with you to take on that larger entity. And that's usually difficult because they're interlocked with a lot of actual other companies, and they will change everything to just change the rules to suit them. However, if you go far enough away, you can get a head start and you can change the rules of the game. It actually happened with aircraft patents in the 1900s because the Wright brothers actually were ignored with their patents, and effectively the governments of the UK, US, and the United States basically settled with them and said, we're going to make the patent available to everybody, we'll pay you off a big sum. To answer a quick question I saw there, yes, I wrote their patents myself, but I had a few large patent companies involved. And what then happened was Google hired my patent lawyer. So the chap was called Tom O'Flynn. And in 2008, he was seconded to Google from the law firm where we were paying him about $50,000 a year. And he now works for the office of David Drummond, the chief legal officer of Google. Google saw my patents. Their head of patents, Michelle K. Lee, was then made head of the patent office. And on her first week of work in 2014, she awarded Google a patent, which was already mentioned by the things they'd seen me do up to 7 years earlier. Complete corruption. And they don't care because what will happen is they just say, so sue us. Oh, no, you can't. You'll settle. That is their strategy. So
my
this whole
dear
idea...
excuses. 1 minute. Hello, sorry. Mr. Eric Masaba.
Yep.
I'm so sorry because we are almost running out of time. So
I'm sorry. So that was it. That was my point. That was it. So what I'm saying is you've just got to get people to, big enough people to help you. Sometimes that won't be the case, but Africa itself, things can be implemented there and they can be done. And the world order is changing. Russia and China are going to have significantly more power. So you'll find a lot of Western firms may just simply want to do a deal with local African inventors.
Thank you so much for that. Soon we'll, because of time. And
I'm sorry.
we still have one speaker, and yeah, people came in a bit late, but still we want to give everybody a chance. So forgive me for this one. But if you maybe can put in your contact details for later, if people want to ask you more questions about this.
Okay, absolutely.
Please do. Can I go to the next speaker, Peppy? Can you please introduce?
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Eric Masaba, for such a wonderful speech. Yeah, actually, we have a question for you, but that will be later. when the other speaker finishes, okay? So we don't waste much time. Yeah, thank you so much for that insightful information. Okay, I would want to welcome Mr. Ambassador Ebubisike.
Hello.
Ambassador George Ebubisike, are you here?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Can
All
you?
right. Over to you, sir. Please just briefly introduce yourself and share with us what you have for us.
Okay. My name is Ebube George Ebisike. I'm a scientist. I'm a businessman, serial entrepreneur. I speak, I write, and this particular subject matter is, I would probably say, what my existence has been about. I've remained in Africa because the biggest question has been, how can we actually bridge diaspora knowledge from people of Black descent with those back here, whom also are craving the opportunity for that bridging in order to create a viable technological possibility for Africa. This is very key because Africa has all the natural resources. The challenges remain knowledge about systems, particularly those around patenting, those around system manufacturing, the relationship with government, which has to do with policy, areas like protectionism, all these with what, all the speakers have said, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Oposia, Eric Masaba, and there's also Dr. Hannington who is going to speak. And he talks about, like a model and a framework of how we need to grow Africa from inside outward. Now, I will refer to Eric because it's very unique. His story keeps me awake at night, having to have created what will have been some of the biggest opportunities for us in terms of taking the glory and earning the funds. Let me say this clearly. If Eric Masaba were to be paid today, like he won in court, he'd probably be worth $50 billion or something of the sort, if not more, from what the likes of Uber and Google have stolen. So I think he may have said a lot, but if we put it in numbers, he would be on the Forbes list. This is the kind of thing that people of Black descent have been able to create and have been stolen from them over the years in the history of technological development. So it's good to put that in perspective. So I will leave it at that so that you can get with Dr. Hannington and any other person that needs to speak. But thank you very much. I'm very, very happy we could make this happen today. Kudos to BridgeAfrique, Ubuntu DNA, and every other person who is on here. There's also Uche Eziokeke, who is, I don't know if there will be time for him to say a few things, so thank you very much all.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ebube Ebisike. Thank you for that. So over to you, Mr. Eric Masaba. There's a question for you that I would just want you to answer, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, someone asked you something about patents. Do you mind if I read it out for you, or you can pick it from yourself?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Dr. Alexander asked a question. He said, please, did you write the patent yourself? And another thing is, do you know anything about patent invalidation, even if you have a patent?
Yes, I do actually. I wrote the patent myself and then brought lawyers on board, including this guy called Tom O'Flynn, who now works for Google. And I think the plan was in 2006 or 2007, Google wanted to acquire everything. It just then happened, long story, which I'll make available on some of my podcast stuff later. They thought it would be easier to just say I didn't exist and take the patent. As for patent invalidation, prior art is everything. If you can show that what you invented existed before the other people filed it, they're invalidated by default, and then they'll have to pay multiple damages. They'll have to pay damages in some cases if it was willful volition and willful violation, it's 3 times. So what they did in my case was just say I didn't exist in the first place. That was the easiest and fastest way. By the time they figured I'd be sick of not existing, I would just settle. And they did make me an offer of a very, well, about 1% of the amount, which was fair back in 2016.
Now, from what you said, I could sense out some challenges in trying to validate yourself sometimes, especially with the Black people. What happened? What happened to some other person that might not have such privilege?
You'd never hear about them. That's a big problem. And what we need to start doing is what Asians did, Koreans and Taiwanese and wherever else. Let's just say that generally when you hear about a startup founder, even if it's European descent, they'll have a sidekick who's Indian or Korean, Japanese or Taiwanese, basically. And same when you look at papers. Now, there are plenty of highly accomplished, highly smart Black people, people of African descent, but that's just not seen. Once that gets changed, and films like Hidden Figures, which talks about the history of some of the Black female mathematicians at NASA, that helps. But remember, that only came out in 2015 or 2016. Okay, so what Abube said, and I'll tell you quickly how I met Abube. I met one of Abube's colleagues in China. I was going to Qingdao, believe it or not, and I was flying back to Shanghai, and we were the two Africans on the plane. So we got talking, and then he asked me if I would come with him to the Ethiopian consulate in Shanghai. He had a meeting, and then we did, and we got on, and unfortunately things have spiraled out of control in Ethiopia, but they were very pleased to meet a fellow African who could promote science. And that's the sort of thing that has to happen. I'm really grateful to BridgeAfrique magazine, Mr. Colowell and Michael and Abube have absolutely given me faith that the African diaspora can recognize talent in one another. And what we need to start to do is put that together. I'll say as well, I know a lot of people might not particularly like the British Empire, the former British Empire, Queen Elizabeth, wherever else, but the only reason I'm alive, I only found out in 2008, was a personal intervention on many periods from the Queen herself. I've actually got letters from King Charles. So there are ways and means to do this. Of course, there are challenges, but there are always going to be challenges. If you want something simple, stay asleep. If you do anything worthwhile, you're going to get pushed back. The harder you get pushed back, it means what you've got is valuable. And this has been quite a story. Last week, I had somebody, a big American Hollywood actor, ask me if I would feature on his Bloomberg show on advancements in science. And when I was talking to the producer, she was like saying, this is a Hollywood script. This story has to be told. So what will happen is at some stage, Google and Facebook and those others will just simply quietly settle. Let's just say I put a provision in for UK politicians and the royal family to get their cut for helping me, because there was nothing in it for them. And let's just say 11, 12 years ago, this looked like a lost cause, and yet they still helped me. What we will then do is we will fund that diaspora thing properly. It'll be one of many funds. There are many African billionaires, but Africa needs to start believing in itself. Don't ask white people, Chinese people to believe in Africa when Africa doesn't believe in itself. Everything is there. Things can be turned around in between 10 and 15 years. China did it. We can do it.
Yeah. But the main issue I noticed with some Africans that are really good with some technology innovation is funding. You know, some people just tend to just be in the middle of the road and just stay there. They don't know whether to go forward or to take a step backward because of funding. So I would love to know if there is any organization specifically funding those like innovators.
I got my funding from non-Africans, bizarrely. All my funding came from people I work with. They all happen to be Europeans. So if you've got a good idea, if you can show value, you'll find that talent has no color. There's no barrier there. I think the biggest problem is Africans don't yet believe in themselves. They still are waiting for the white man to come and say, this is what you do. I was very fortunate, and it was kind of the other way around for me. I've had a lot of people my whole career come and say, but Eric, you can come up with this. You're really smart. Can you show us how to do this? And then they've listened and they've told their bosses and their friends, and some of those bosses and friends have been as high up as the top of the royal family in the UK. So it can happen. I'll be clear with you, when I was going through the worst of it, of course I hated it and I thought, this is horrible, they've taken away my life. But you've got to just think, if you've got something worthwhile, you will get pushed back. And you go through it and you'll get through it. And there'll be a bright light at the end of the tunnel because you've made that light. And as far from funding goes, I had absolutely no funding. I'd been banned for life, still am, from the United States because of this thing that happened. I have the same profile as somebody the CIA wanted to put in prison. So I had no money when I came up with this. I didn't get any money for 18 months after I'd started the patent process. I needed to raise most of that money just to file the patent. As I said, £400,000 to date. So that's something like £4,000 a year, actually a lot more. It's some ridiculous visibility. I had visibility because I'd worked in investment banks, I had pieces, and that's more. Funding will come as long as somebody knows you're there. You could have a shop. If you don't have a website, if you don't have enough word of mouth, if you don't have physical presence, nobody will buy from you. And that's not anybody's fault but yours. If nobody knows you're there, nobody knows you got the goods that they want, you're not going to get funding. Once people know you're there, you're going to get the funding. And that's what visibility is about. I think that's the most important thing. Even if we could do things like spelling bees, or you know how the math league challenges in the United States are always won by people of Chinese descent. We need to see Black people winning those math competitions, and then you'll find investment will follow more in a way than any other website or anything else could ever do. That's what we need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more like trying to proving yourself very well and showing that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you find
thank you so much.
I got that money because of people knew I'd done this thing. They knew my reputation before.
May I ask one question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure.
In what areas, Eric, it's to you, right? In what areas are we doing well technologically as a continent? Which countries are leading the way on the continent?
Technology-wise, I would say that Ethiopia looks like the most, despite all its political troubles, it looks like the most technologically advanced African country. It looks like a European country in terms of its airline and infrastructure. It's putting satellites in space, and it's a big country, 100 million. But I mean, if they can resolve, which is a big if, a lot of the political issues, that literally is like the most advanced African nation. That's the sort of African nation which can have not just its own space program, but can sort out infrastructure. After that, people talk about, obviously, the really big ones, Nigeria and South Africa, but Kenya and Uganda, to a less extent, have started really innovating in finance, for example. But I think finance is going to be a bust. With this new multipolar order led by Russia and China, what we need to start seeing is more fertilizer manufacture, self-generating energy in Africa from geothermal, obviously roads. Then you'll find that everything follows from there. China did this model. I went to China in 2006. They had one metro line in Shanghai. 10 years later, it's the biggest one in the world by far. They've even got the only maglev, commercially available maglev, and that's a British and German technology which the British and Germans couldn't make work. There's no reason why things like that couldn't be done in Africa. And Ethiopia, to me, looks like the country. And Kolawole Michael I think he did a few things on Ethiopian innovations, and that can work. So it'd be great to be able to just highlight those. And there's a chap who has a YouTube channel. I think he's a Ghanaian chap, and he speaks fluent Chinese. And he goes around and he shows Chinese people and Europeans, says, where do you think this is? And he shows them African airports or infrastructure, and nobody ever thinks it's Africa. That's a very important thing to do as well. He's doing a great job. I'll find his name and put a link to his YouTube channel on there. He's a friend of Colorwell and Michael as well.
Oh,
okay.
wonderful.
Maybe you can put it in the chat.
That's wonderful. Okay. Actually have a lot of questions to ask you, but the thing is this, we are almost out of time. We are expected to close at 10 p.m.
Okay.
That's 3 minutes. Yeah. So I don't know if you said?
Dr. Hannington, can we speak to Dr. Hannington if he's here? Just for a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much to the organizers of this discussion, and thank you, my friend Ebusike, the one person who has got the only name that can be reversed and still be the same, Ebube, whichever way you look at it when you write it. You know, there's just I don't really know where to start here, given these discussions. But there's so much input that just proves that we have everything we need. You know, there's no question about that. And I don't know, are we closing in an hour or in a few minutes? Is it an hour from now? How much time do we have?
Actually, we just have a minute, but for your sake, definitely we're going to extend. Let's just extend for more 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
From how everything is going, I just feel like we have a lot to learn from, you know. So I would
had 10 years ago, you know, this thesis, what is wrong with Africa and what can be done to fix it? And the first thing I found out is that we don't have a plan. And we don't have a pinnacle of organization. And so I went ahead, and I'm a chemical engineer by training in the UK, in Wales. So, you know, because of the time, you know, I'll just go straight to it. Going back 1 second.